everybody. Today the chapter which we will be studying is Life Processes in Living Organism Part 1. Now, in this chapter we are going to study that there are various organ systems which is present in our body, right? जब हम लोग पढ़ रहे थे regarding the hierarchy of this organ and organ system, starting from cell which makes up the tissue, then the organ, then the organ system. So basically this organ system which is present in a human body, there are a large number of organ system. Okay, these organ system are a part of various systems which is the for example circulatory system है, फिर respiratory system है, फिर excretory system है. So there are many organs which is involved in each of these systems or physiological systems which is going on inside a body. But apart from these systems that they are part of, these organs also perform their own function independently. Okay. So ये अपना काम भी खुद से इंडिपेंडेंटली करते हैं, बट इनके बीच में, these organs के बीच में एक बहुत controlled and large coordination रहता है, and this coordination requires a lot of energy consumption. Okay, so in this case we require a lot of energy for these organs to work efficiently. Okay, now of course जब भी मैं energy बोलती हूँ तो the synonym for this और तब दिमाग में फटाक से याद आता है कि what will be the physiological process involved? Yes, you are right. The physiological process which will be involved in this is the respiratory system. So today under this life processes in living organism part 1, first we will be studying about the respiratory system, okay, as to with respect to the energy production, how is energy produced, from where it is produced, okay, and in the cell where it is taking place, and in the next part of this chapter we are going to talk about cell division, जिसके बारे में मैं बाद में बात करूँगी. So now we will be studying about first respiration. Now when I am talking about respiration, you need to have a source of energy, right? ये जो हम लोग दिन भर खाना खाते हैं, okay, so इसमें क्या क्या है which can give us as a source of energy? It can be carbohydrates, it can be lipids, it can be fats, it can be proteins, okay, it can be any one of these. Obviously the maximum amount of energy is provided by carbohydrate, but ऐसा नहीं है कि lipid, proteins and fats एनर्जी नहीं देते. दे ऑल्सो गिव द रिक्विजिट अमाउंट, बट जो हम लोग बाद में देखेंगे जो कैलोरीफिक वैल्यू है, किलो कैलोरीफिक जो वैल्यू है, ऑब्वियसली वो बहुत ज़्यादा देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स एंड ईच ऑफ दिस. ओके, सो we'll start our chapter with the topic respiration. Now when I'm talking about respiration, आप लोगों के बीच में बहुत ज़्यादा एक मिसकंसेप्शन है कि respiration means that it means breathing. Okay, it is not like that. When I'm talking about respiration, it is basically divided into two types. One is known as the respiration at the body level, okay, and the other respiration is at the cellular level. Now ये जो बॉडी लेवल में जो रेस्पिरेशन है, that is known as the breathing or it is known as the external respiration. So let me make it very clear for you people that respiration is not equivalent to breathing. ऐसा नहीं है कि respiration means breathing है. Breathing or external respiration is a part of your entire respiration. And ये जो cellular level पे जो respiration है, इसको हम लोग बोलते हैं cellular respiration. Now if I'm talking about this first one, that is your breathing or external respiration. Now breathing and external respiration in case of human beings or most of the living organism, okay, it starts from the nasal cavity. अपना जो नाक है, so it starts from that, okay? So this nasal cavity will obviously consist of the nostrils, फिर जो nasal chamber है, so the nasal cavity includes the nose plus the nostrils plus the nasal chamber, okay? उसके बाद जो है उसके बाद द nasal cavity के बाद द respiratory tract involves the pharynx. Now आप लोग ने जब डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम स्टडी किया था, सीखा था, तब ये फैरिंग्स आप लोग ने वहां पर भी यू हैव स्टडीड, राइट? सो बेसिकली ये जो फैरिंग्स है, दिस इज द कॉमन पैसेज वे फॉर बोथ द फूड एंड द एयर. मीन्स ये जब खाना या फिर हवा जब जाता है फैरिंग्स तक, इट इज अ कॉमन पैसेज. उसके बाद it has two pathways. If it is the digestive system, it will go into the esophagus. But agar it is with respect to the respiration, it will go into the next part which is known as the larynx. Now ये जो larynx है, basically अगर मैं आपसे अभी बात कर रही हूँ या फिर आप किसी से भी बात करते हो, the larynx is basically responsible for that. Okay, so larynx is not only responsible for the respiratory tract, it is also responsible for giving us the voice. Okay, जैसे हम लोग जो बात करते हैं, जो speech हम लोग बोलते हैं, that is because of this larynx. Okay, so it is also known as the voice box. ओके उसके बाद जो लैरिंग्स के बाद जब जो रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक का पार्ट है, दैट इज द ट्रैकिया. सो अगर हम लोग कोई रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक देखते हैं, सो इफ दिस इज द फैरिंग्स, ओके, इट इज द कॉमन पैसेज वे. इसके बाद हम लोग के पास आता है दैट इज द लैरिंग्स विच इज योर वॉइस बॉक्स. उसके बाद जो ये ट्रैकिया आता है, इट लुक्स लाइक दिस. इसमें सी शेप्ड कार्टिलेजिनस रिंग्स ऐसे रहता है. ओके, सो दिस इज अ वेरी यूनिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक. सो दिस पार्ट इज द लैरिंग्स, देन दिस वन इज द ट्रैकिया. उसके बाद जो है द ट्रैकिया विल नाउ गिव राइज टू द ब्रोंक्यूल्स. So ये जो ट्रैकिया है, this will divide into two bronchioles like this. Okay, so these are the bronchioles. उसके बाद जो respiratory tract होता है, that belongs to the bronchi. Means it will further branch. ये जो bronchioles है, वो लोग फिर से divide करेंगे like this. Okay, and ultimately this bronchi which is there, it will end into the alveoli or the air sacs. Okay, so this will end up into structures like this, and this is known as the air sacs. There are millions of alveoli, और ये जो alveoli है, ये specially adapted है for the process of this breathing. Why? Because they are very moist and their walls are also very thin. Okay, so this is the adaptation for this respiration, external respiration or the breathing. So this is what your breathing or external respiration का जो respiratory tract है, this also involves your lungs also. So if you see, the lungs will consist of the bronchioles, the bronchi and the alveoli. So this is your lungs. Okay, so this is how your external respiration takes place, whereby the oxygen is taken in and the carbon dioxide is given out. अभी जो नेक्स्ट स्टेप ऑफ द रेस्पिरेशन है, दिस इज योर बॉडी लेवल पे. अभी जो है वो है सेल्यूलर लेवल और ऑल्सो नोन एज सेल्यूलर रेस्पिरेशन. नाउ फॉरमोस्टली दिस सेल्यूलर रेस्पिरेशन टेक्स प्लेस विद इन द सेल, एंड विद इन द सेल वेयर डज इट टेक्स प्लेस? इट टेक्स प्लेस विद इन द माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. नाउ अभी जो हम लोग खाना खाते हैं, राइट, मेनली द कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स, लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हम लोग चावल खाते, ब्रेड खाते, फिर रोटी खाते, उसमें जो कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स है, दिस कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स इज मेनली यूटिलाइज्ड फॉर द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ द एनर्जी. वही यूटिलाइज होता है फॉर द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ एनर्जी, बट दिस एनर्जी इज प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द फॉर्म ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर एनर्जी करेंसी विच इज नोन एज ATP. And what is the full form of ATP? It is adenosine triphosphate. What it is? It is adenosine ट्राइफॉस्फेट. तो मैं फिर से रिपीट कर रही हूँ कि हम लोग जो खाना खाते हैं, द कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स मेनली, दिस लीड्स टू द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ द एनर्जी, एंड दिस एनर्जी इज प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द फॉर्म ऑफ ATP. ओके, एंड ये जो ऑक्सीडाइज्ड होता है द कार्बोहाइड्रेट, उसमें जो सिंपलेस्ट कार्बोहाइड्रेट है उसका नाम है ग्लूकोज. So basically the glucose which is there in the carbohydrate, that gets oxidized. This is the most important step of your this cellular respiration, जहाँ पे कार्बोहाइड्रेट का जो सिंपलेस्ट फॉर्म है जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं ग्लूकोज, दैट बेसिकली गेट्स ऑक्सीडाइज्ड, एंड इन दिस प्रोसेस ऑफ ऑक्सीडेशन द ATP is released in the form of energy. Okay, and also this takes place in the mitochondria. Now अगर हम लोग देखते हैं माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया का जो स्ट्रक्चर है, it looks like this. It more or less looks like a bean shaped structure. Obviously just like बहुत सारे सेल ऑर्गेनल्स है हम लोग के सेल में जो डबल वॉल्ड है, even the mitochondria is a double walled structure like this. Okay, and इसका जो this part which you see, this is known as the cristae. Okay, and इसका जो plasmic content है that is inside this, that is known as the matrix. Okay, and also the cellular respiration mainly in most of the cases it requires oxygen. So अगर ये oxygen के presence में होता है, okay, then it is known as aerobic respiration. And अगर ये respiration in the absence of oxygen होता है, then it is known as anaerobic respiration. Okay, mostly almost maximum number of animals जो हम लोग चारों तरफ देखते हैं, including us, हम लोग ये aerobic respiration ही we undergo. So our respiration is basically in the presence of oxygen. But बहुत सारे बैक्टीरिया है, lower group of animals है जो ऑक्सीजन के presence में नहीं रह सकता है. So they generally respire anaerobically, that is in the absence of oxygen. In both the cases the glucose gets oxidized, but we will be seeing that in case of aerobic respiration the glucose is completely oxidized, वो completely oxidation होता है. और जो anaerobic respiration है उसमें हम लोग देखते हैं कि उसमें partial oxidation of glucose होता है. So now we will be studying about the 3 steps of aerobic respiration. Okay, since most of the animals respire aerobically, that is I told you that aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. So we'll be studying the steps of aerobic respiration. Now when I'm talking about the steps of aerobic respiration, the first step which is there, it is known as the glycolysis. Okay, the next step which is there, it is known as the tricarboxylic acid cycle. And the last step which is there, this is your first, then is your second, this one, and then finally is your electron transfer chain reaction. Now, so in the first case, that is your glycolysis. What happens during the process of glycolysis? In this process, one molecule of glucose, it's very important, one molecule of glucose will give rise to two molecules of each of pyruvic acid plus two molecules of ATP plus two molecules of NADH2 and two molecules of water. Okay, so basically the oxidation reaction is taking place here, and the one molecule of glucose which is there present in the carbohydrate, that will be oxidized into two molecules each of pyruvic acid, two molecules of ATP, two molecules of NADH2 and two molecules of water. Now the full form of NADP is, or NADH2 here, is nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide. Okay, so before this pyruvic acid which is there, this pyruvic acid, this will enter into the next cycle which is known as the tricarboxylic acid cycle. So before it enters this pyruvic acid, there is a transition. Okay, there is a transition reaction between this glycolysis and this tricarboxylic acid cycle, which is also known as the TCA cycle. So ये transition cycle में और transition process में क्या होता है? This pyruvic acid which is there, okay, it gets converted into acetyl coenzyme A, and in this during this conversion of the pyruvic acid into the acetyl coenzyme A, it will give also to rise two molecules of NADH2 and two molecules of CO2. Okay, so this is basically a transition reaction which takes place between glycolysis and tricarboxylic acid. Now, the next step of this aerobic respiration is the tricarboxylic acid cycle, that is the TCA. Now, why is this tricarboxylic acid cycle named so? Okay, this is because यहाँ पे जो first product form होता है, okay, that is known as the citric acid. Okay, now this citric acid has total of 3 carboxylic group. Since it consists of 3 carboxylic group, that's why it is known as the tricarboxylic acid cycle. So apart from the tricarboxylic acid, it is also known as the citric acid cycle. Obviously आप लोग अभी जानते होंगे कि क्यों इसको citric acid cycle भी बोलते हैं, because it is the first product and also the last reactant which is there for this particular cycle. Okay, apart from that, जो scientist ये particular cycle को discover किया था, that is Krebs, in his name also it is named, that is it is also known as Krebs cycle. Okay, now one of the most important thing is that ये जो glycolysis है, this takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. Okay. Whereas this tricarboxylic acid cycle or the TCA cycle which is there, it takes place in the mitochondria of the cell. Okay, so you can understand that this one takes place outside the mitochondria and this one takes place inside the mitochondria. Now what happens, like for example, यहाँ पे क्या होता है, one molecule of glucose is basically oxidized into two molecules each of pyruvic acid plus ATP plus NADH2 plus water. यहाँ पे क्या होता है, ये जो हम लोग को जो acetyl coenzyme में मिला था, remember in case of the transition reaction, so उसका जो acetyl part है, so the acetyl part of the acetyl coenzyme that undergoes oxidation. And this oxidation of the acetyl part of the acetyl coenzyme A will give rise, so this is one step, and the second step is it will give rise to, or it will produce molecules of CO2, water, NADH2 and also another one which is known as FADH2. So FADH2, just like it is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, similarly the FADH2 is full form is flavin adenine dinucleotide. Okay, so these are the various reactions which takes place whereby the acetyl coenzyme, it is a cyclic process. Okay, it is a continuously cyclic process, but in this case what happens is that it starts giving out CO2, then it starts giving out FADH2, then NADH2, right? So it is more or less which starts from the citric acid and also ends in the citric acid. Now the last step which is known as the electron transfer chain reaction, basically if you see that in each of these steps NADH2 is produced, then FADH2 is produced, then again here you will see that हम लोग देखेंगे इधर भी NADH2 formation हो रहा है. So basically in this process which is known as electron transfer chain reaction, the NADH2 and the FADH2 participates in this chain reaction. So what does their participation forms? So एक molecule of this NADH2 से 3 molecules of ATP is obtained. So 3 molecules of ATP is formed from 1 molecule of NADH2. Okay, and 2 molecules of ATP is produced from, or it is formed from 1 molecule of FADH2. Okay, so obviously by now you see that we have got our ATP, which was one of the criteria that the glucose needs to be broken down, and also we need the production of high amount of energy. So our glucose is obviously broken down, okay, and the FADH2, NADH2 which we were getting, okay, that is from that we get the ATP, which is the adenosine triphosphate. Also in this process the water is also formed. Okay, so these are your 3 steps of your this aerobic respiration, whereby the complete oxidation of glucose takes place. Okay, and what does this complete oxidation of glucose? Obviously, it will be taking place in the presence of oxygen, right? And if you see, it will give rise to the carbon dioxide. See here and also here. So, you will get carbon dioxide and water, and सबसे important ATP, energy in the form of ATP. So, this is your entire process of aerobic respiration.